And just like that, the Fox X-Men series comes to a close. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to a brand new episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, and guys, today is a review on the Dark Phoenix, which is what some would say a retread or a revisit on the Dark Phoenix storyline, which we got half-assed in X-Men 3 The Last Stand many moons ago, is what it feels like. It feels like the franchise is kind of coming to a slow breaking point after a long road trip, which it's been a hell of a trip. Lots of ups, lots of downs, but God, I mean, it's one of those things where it's so surreal, because just like yesterday, I remember being 9 years old in New Jersey at the time, and me and my father were going to see the first X-Men film, and I was excited because I didn't know what to expect. For the first time, I was going to see heroes that I loved and grew up with from cartoons. I was going to finally see them on the big screen, and it was something that I nor anyone in the world would be prepared for. Before shared universes, before the MCU, before Spider-Man and the boom of comic book movies even, there was the X-Men, and it was the first major ensemble comic book film of characters, and the game has been changed ever since. This is the longest running comic book film series ever, as for right now. 19 years. It started in the year 2000 and is culminating in this last film. A lot of news has been surrounding this film that it is the worst X-Men film, that there is terrible items in this film, terrible instances, events, yada yada yada, but I honestly don't agree or believe that for 1 second. This film actually brings an air of quality to it that I was very surprised. They did multiple things in the film that I was actually surprised and kind of roped into by. And the thing is you have to understand that X-Men is never as big of a scale as the Avengers spectacles, as it were, because you're combining several different franchises into one big action flick, whereas X-Men has always been about the group, always been about the people. Yes, they did the offshoots with Deadpool and Wolverine and everything, but at its heart, an X-Men film is the ensemble, is all the characters balancing and working well together, and this is one of the better ones. And surprisingly, I really, truly, genuinely believe that Simon Kinberg actually did a decent job in his first time directing. More so than, for instance, David Goyer did on Blade Trinity, which essentially killed the franchise. Sophie Turner, Sansa Stark, was actually pretty believable in this film. And the thing is that I hadn't even realized, but they did have to reshoot the whole entire third act, apparently, because it drew too many similarities to Captain Marvel, which I didn't even know. Captain Marvel, as the film itself, comparing to this one, I feel like this one was much more enjoyable. I felt like I could actually place myself in the character's shoes a lot better. Captain Marvel, mediocre Marvel movie, a lot of big bang spectacle, some little 90s references here and there, which incidentally this film also takes place in the 90s. The whole story is again about Jean. It starts with an opening of Jean when she was young and kind of how she came to find out her powers in kind of a terrible, tragic way, into the point where Professor Xavier actually takes her in. Flash forward to 1992, and this is already taking into effect that they've already dealt with Apocalypse. They've already kind of gone through all those things and kind of started to become a team and whatnot. You're seeing the X-Men actually be beloved. Mutants are actually acceptable because of all the great that the X-Men have done. They even have a phone line directly to the president between him and Charles Xavier, which is wild. Along a rescue mission that essentially happens with all the main casts, the Phoenix Force goes into Jean, which everything starts to go awry. Jean's starting to feel weird. She's going off the chart. She's got power flux. She's looking like a burning candle, kind of like molten Phoenix, if you want to call it that. And as the course of the story goes on, she's being pulled in a million different directions, does some terrible things, and then there's a sort of manipulation that occurs with Jessica Chastain's character, which we come to find is part of a manipulative kind of evil, nefarious alien race. Long story short, the X-Men try and get Jean back, but because of circumstances where she ends up killing someone close to the team, some of the team is splintered, and then some of these said members go with Magneto to try and kill her, and that doesn't go over too well, of course. So the whole movie, they're trying to pursue Jean and kind of either save her or stop her. The way that everyone described this film as incoherent and stupid and having no point, I don't know what movie they were watching, but I could follow everything closely. Now, is it a perfect film? Hell no. None of the X-Men films are perfect films. But for them to kind of criticize that aspect, I just don't see it. And they're focusing on the main focus of the film, which is Jean. So you're seeing every bit of her backstory, and you're focusing on kind of what she's going through, but also on the changes and progressions that they did with the characters. I mean, the way that Professor X was in this film was very interesting because he was actually almost getting a little bit of an ego and kind of a power trip on the fact that he was being successful and almost vindicated by kind of getting some praise and awards and having the X-Men be kind of the beacon of hope for mutant kind to actually be accepted. And then when stuff starts to go awry and twist, he still has trouble kind of copying and admitting to some of the majorly wrong things that he actually did, especially to Jean, which caused this whole thing to kind of blow up in his face and in effect basically put the X-Men in a terrible position where they actually have to stop and hurt one of their own possibly, and possibly put her down. Cyclops, Ty Sheridan, great job. I really enjoy his take on Cyclops and Scott. Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy returning for their fourth outing as the infamous Magneto and Professor X. Great job. Jessica Lawrence comes through. She kind of doesn't feel like she wants to be there. I mean, that's been obvious since well before this film came out. Then you have Nicholas Hoult returning. Then you have all the other players, Storm, Quicksilver, Nightcrawler. And yeah, I mean, they all did a fantastic job. And it's definitely something that is a retread because obviously they touched on the whole Phoenix and everything in the previous set of the original slate of X-Men films and whatnot. And again, they ended up kind of retconning what happened in the last movie where she basically bursts into flame and kind of causes this big kind of burst of energy onto Apocalypse, which arguably you can say maybe the Phoenix Force wasn't in her. She just kind of did have that extreme amount of power already that kind of manifested itself in kind of a ray or a flame or whatever you want to call it. But it does seem like half a step or two steps back when they come into this one, and then she's fully blown up into the Phoenix Force. It inhabits her, and all the other things kind of come through. That's something that, again, I got over very quickly. And comparing it to, again, these other films, like Captain Marvel, which it apparently drew a lot more resemblance to. I mean, Jean's story is a lot more relatable and tragic, and I felt more in tune with what she was going through rather than what the hell Carol Danvers was going through. It was showing you really the torment that this character was having, being torn between two kind of factions and worlds and kind of where her powers were pulling her. And again, it was very, very dramatic and kind of very enthralling in my opinion. Overall, I'd give the movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was better than Apocalypse. It definitely brought the Phoenix. It does kind of stink because in this set of films, obviously this is the last one from Fox, and now Fox is now owned by Disney, so they are going to reboot the X-Men. I think that they should take a little bit of a break from the X-Men. Don't reboot it just yet. Maybe give it 2 or 3 years to just settle down, and then you can start the writing process, kind of having ideas of where you can go with it. But overall, guys, as far as the Phoenix is concerned, the Dark Phoenix film, definitely go and check it out. If you're an X-Men fan, go and check it out in the theaters. But anyway, guys, that's all the time that I have for today. Thank you for listening to me jibber jabber about the X-Men film, Dark Phoenix. It was a good time, definitely enjoyed it, and I might even go and see it again. Who knows? But until next time, guys, that's all the time that I have for today. Thanks so much. As always, I'm Jay. Take care.